Welcome to your very first edition of Crimes Notes. Today we're going to be talking about the properties of algebra, but if you notice, the very top of your notes, you should see the words do now. What that means is that these are kind of like warm-up problems. You should already know how to do these. These two problems are actually based upon the coordinate characters that you guys just finished drawing. So what I'd like for you to do right now is go ahead and work those two problems before we actually start the notes. Alright, so now that you've done those do now problems, let's look down towards the bottom here where it says notes. And the first thing that it does is it says commutative property. So we're going to be looking in this column at the commutative property, this column at the distributive property, and this column at the associative property. If I were to give you the actual definitions of those, they are not that easy to understand. But what I would like for you to do is look at this equation right here. And then it says, describe what happened or what changed from the left side of the equation to the right side of the equation, or from the left side of the equal sign to the right side. So if we were looking at this, the first side is 3x plus 2y minus 5z equals 2y minus 5z plus 3x. So what I want you to do is describe what happened, So look at this side, and then look at this side, and in this box right here, tell me what changed. And then I want you to do that for each one of these, Again, this isn't about right or wrong. This is about what you notice or how you describe what's going on. Then, once you've completed that, I want you to raise your hand and I'll come around and check it, or you can bring it to me if it doesn't look like I am busy. That being said, let's look at the actual definitions for commutative property. So that's down here at the bottom. Let me fold my paper so that you can see it. So right here at the bottom, it says, let's define the commutative property. So the actual commutative property states that addition and multiplication can be done in any order with the same result. The distributive property, slide it over here into the middle, states that you're going to multiply the number outside the parentheses by everything inside the parentheses. And then the last one is our associative property. The associative property states that when 3 or more numbers are added or multiplied, it doesn't matter which terms are added or multiplied first. Now, remember, I told you earlier that these definitions wouldn't really help you with the properties. And that's why I had you work on discovering what the properties were. So if you're looking up here at the commutative property, in this problem right here, you should have noticed that the 3x and the 2y and the 5z all stayed the same, but they switched around. So it was 2y second, now 2y is first. The negative 5z was last, but now it's second. So you should have said something down here about the numbers switching places. And then if you look down here at the second example, it would be the same thing. In this side, or on the left side, the 5x plus 2y is inside the parentheses, and it's still inside the parentheses here, but the 2y, typo, that should be a 5x, sorry, and the 5x switched places, okay? So again, the commutative property, the way that you would recognize it would be if the terms switched places. So if you'll flip over onto the back of your notes, you'll notice a section that says recognizing the three properties. So under the commutative property, let's say the numbers are the same, or we could say terms. So the numbers slash terms are the same, but in a different order. Or you could even simply say something about the numbers or terms switch places. Okay? So now let's look at the next one. The next one is the distributive property. Okay? In the distributive property, the definition said that we were multiplying the number on the outside of the parentheses by everything that was inside the parentheses. Okay? And so up here, I'm hoping that that's what you wrote, is something about multiplication. So 2 times 3 gave me the 6, and then this had an x, so this has an x. And then 2 times negative 4 gave me the negative 8. Same thing on this one. Okay? We have 5y, and that stayed. But then the next term was 2 times y, and then the next term was 2 times negative 6, which is negative 12. But the easiest way to determine the distributive property just by looking without actually checking for the multiplication is to notice that there's only ever parentheses on one side, because once you distribute, your whole purpose is to remove parentheses. That's what the distributive property is about. So if you flip over onto the back, we're going to write a couple of things under the distributive property. The first way is that we're going to notice that there's only parentheses on one side. And then the second part, we're going to write multiplication, because this is the only property where the terms actually change. Commutative, they flip places, but they don't actually change. Okay? They just switch. So now let's look at the last one, the associative property. If we go back up here to our problems, okay? You had 7x plus 6y in parentheses minus 11z. Then you had 7x plus 6y minus 11z, where the 6y and 11z are in the parentheses. So I'm hoping what you noticed down here was that the numbers that were inside the parentheses were different. So it's the same order, 7x plus 6y minus 11z, 7x plus 6y minus 11z, but the groupings are different. And the way that I usually describe associate, that's somebody that you hang out with. So originally the 6y was hanging out with the 7x, but then they got in some nasty fight, and so now the 6y is hanging out with the 11z. So when you change who you're hanging out with, that's considered the associative property. So that gives you two ways to recognize the associative property as well. So flip over onto the back, and we can put terms inside the parentheses change, or you can put switch who they are hanging out with, if that's helpful to you. Okay. Good. So down here, I've got some practice problems for you guys to try, and I want you guys to see if you can kind of recognize it. So what you're going to do is you're going to kind of look from the left side to the right side, and then you want to look at what you're recognizing. So did the numbers switch places or change order? Is there only parentheses on one side? Or did the terms inside the parentheses change? So you're going to look at each problem, and then you're going to pick, is it commutative, associative, or distributive? And then once you've picked, you're going to justify it using one of these things. So you're going to tell me why you said that it was that property. Okay? So there's about 6 of those for you to try. Please remember, I am in the room, so you don't have to struggle through it. Okay? And then at the very, very bottom is going to be your exit ticket for the day. The exit ticket is down here. And I want you to write your own example of one of the properties. Tell me which property it is, and then justify why it's that property. Okay? So again, write your own. Tell me which one of these 3 properties it is, and then use one of our justifications from up here to tell me why it was that property. Again, please remember, I am in the room if you still need assistance. Have a great day.